This is Beach Talk Radio.
Good morning, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all ships at sea. This is your captain speaking, Mean Gene. Mean Gene. The following will be a test of the ship's whistle, the sonar alarm, the cable alarm, and the atomic attack alarm.
Hello, America, and welcome to the #1 radio station in all of Fort Myers Beach. Beach Talk Radio. Here are your hosts, Kim and Ed Ryan.
And good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Mondays with the Mayor, number 32, if I'm keeping track correctly. And before we get to the mayor and our questions for tonight, I want to let you know that the show is sponsored in part by Dorston Claims. If your house is gone and your insurance company denied you the claim, you start off with a adjuster like Mark Dorston, and he'll help you get money back before you need to get an attorney, which we'll talk about later on in the show. You can call Mark Dorston today if you want to, right now on his cell phone, 239-849-2949. That's 239-849-2949. We know Mark is helping out a lot of people on Fort Myers Beach get the money they deserve to rebuild, because it's all about the rebuild, right, Dan? That's what it's all about.
Well, without it, we would have a bunch of sand and nothing else to do.
So a 5-hour meeting
shirt.
again. I know. I'm not
get
wearing a
long
sweatshirt.
sleeve shirts? I know.
I'm not wearing a sweatshirt for the first time. So a 5-hour meeting today, and can we make a little pact for the future with your meetings that John King is not allowed to schedule any speakers anymore for the rest of time?
Yeah, poor John. I think that he made his comments at the end. I think that things went a little differently than he was anticipating, and that happens once in a while.
So she didn't see the meeting. So
I'm sorry I missed it. It sounded
well. The title of his presentation was perfect. It was something like how to survive, how communities survive, or something like that.
Survive or fail. Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought, wow, this is going to be great, and it just turned out that the guy just kept talking about building big hotels.
Yeah, I think the only thing I got out of that entire thing was if you don't build a 400-unit hotel with a spa and everything else, that you're doomed to fail. So it was really one-sided, but we'll move on to the next thing.
John apologized at the end of the meeting because he felt like the guy went off track a little bit, but
he certainly knew his stuff, but it was very one-tracked, and it felt very lobby-esque to me.
Yeah. So I know Kim wanted to start off with the question from yesterday.
Oh, I just wanted to say how nice it was to see you out at Joe's house yesterday.
Yeah, I'm certainly glad. I think it was Mike Hudak that found or started that story originally, and then people started sending it to me, and then I know Rick and Amy got in contact with him and started helping him through some of the stuff he was having an issue with, and put it out there, and you guys covered it to get people over there to help. And I figured that's something I know how to do, so I wanted to make sure I could be over there to help. There was a good turnout. The rain kind of shortened it a little bit, I think sooner than most people wanted, but there was a good turnout, and you could see the smile on Joe's face at the end of the day. He was sitting in his garden. I think Amy and I and Joe and their son were the last 4 people there. And there was another lady, I'm sorry, I can't remember her name, but she was helping Joe plant in his garden, and you could see the smile on his face. He's sitting in the garden, just smiling, planting all of the things. And you could tell that brought joy to him. So it was a nice day.
Yeah, his story, I was able to interview him while you guys were out there working, and he, recounted his harrowing story with the storm and being up in that crawl space with his cat or cats. I can't remember if it was more than one, but I mean, the guy he is surviving and thriving, as he said, and he was so overcome with joy and appreciation for everybody that showed up yesterday and has reached out. So it looked like a lot of stuff was getting done. I saw a saw in your hand, so some wood was getting cut.
Yeah, I actually kept all my fingers, so that's good. It's been a while. It was nice to dust off some of the old skills and try to be helpful in a way. I knew, I'm definitely not a green thumb or a gardener, but I can build a few things. So it was nice to be able to help out. Joe's story, unfortunately, it's not the only one. There's, there's people that have come up and told me the same story. I had a lady that came and talked to me about her and her husband had finally decided to move down here and bought a condo. And just a couple months before the storm, she lost her husband. And then of course, lost her condo and it's a similar story, but she just felt defeated. And it's nice to see that, that's what this community is all about is people helping each other and nobody has any wants. There's no ulterior motives. It's just, get your gloves on, get your boots on and shovels and let's get to work. And as I said to you guys, and I said before, there's other people out there that are feeling that. Don't be too prideful to reach out and tell someone or ask for help, because there's a mountain of people out here that just want to help. They just need to know where to go and do it.
Right.
And we have people that reach out to us. Hey, we're coming down for a visit. Let us know where we can help out. So, I mean, I think it extends beyond just the beach community, that people that come down for vacation. And there was a guy there yesterday who told his wife it was his birthday, his 70th birthday. And I apologize, I don't remember his name, but he said, no, I don't want to go out to eat. I want to go and help a fellow veteran out. So that's the kind of people that are down there all over the place. And then you got to make the announcement about the garage situation. So that was good too.
Yeah. Before we get to that,
okay.
Back in the day, there was beach cleanups and then the sidewalk cleanup and all that. And that seems to be, you don't really need to do that anymore. But if it's something like yesterday and somebody needs some kind of help like that, it's easy to find 30 to 50 people that'll come and bang out some work that you don't need to go get a permit for. But you know what I'm saying? Whatever you guys did yesterday was the kind of thing. And it makes not only the person that you're helping feel better, everybody that's doing it too feels so much better about taking their mind off all the other shit going on and helping out.
Well, yeah, I mean, he was he's in a trailer, and it's not that he's living in a tent or anything, but the conditions weren't ideal. When you saw it, there was weeds, and it just was not a safe place to walk around. It was not a safe place for him to, he doesn't seem to get around as probably good as what he once did, but he was very thankful, and everybody came in and helped, and it was amazing, in 4 hours, the transformation that property made just from, cleaning weeds and rearranging and planting things and bringing some greenery back. And at the end of the day, you got to leave and see a smile on a guy's face. That was worth all of it.
And the Italian music he provided was just perfect.
And he was wearing the coolest shirt on the planet. Did you see that? He was still dialed in.
People posting questions about where could they get a shirt like that. So that was fun.
Yeah, Joe still got his style.
So Dan, just to put a bow on the garage thing and let it go after that, just explain how you have one group of people that were working on this from the beginning, and you had Joe and Rick and Amy's folks. You had like a team of people meeting with the town, and they couldn't come to an agreement at some point. Then Rick does his thing, and then afterward, it seems like the same group of people that were meeting beforehand came to the conclusion that it's okay. So what happened?
Yeah, so a lot of people obviously went and met with Rick and Amy, and they live right around the corner from us, so we see them pretty much every single day. And a lot of people were working in the background to try to come to a solution. If it had to be no, then it was no. But at least let's take another look at it. And the state went back and took a look at it and gave it to the hands of someone that had no idea of what was going on, didn't know anything about Rick on the Roof, didn't know anything about it, and say, here's this case. What do you see as an option? And they gave their opinions on what they felt was a couple options. FEMA took a look at it. The state took a look at it, and they came down on Tuesday. We talked about it. It was a meeting between FEMA, the town, our building staff, myself, and Con Cole and some of his staff were down. And it was basically just how do we get on the same page? How do we get to where, if the answer is yes, it's yes. If it's no, it's no. But that we're all saying the same things. Nobody wants to hear from FEMA that it's the town's decision after they come and they visit, and then they walk away and they write a letter saying it's the town's decision. My point was, yes, we know it's the town's decision. We can't keep beating that dead horse, but for them to simply say we agree with the town's decision, that goes a long way to say we're all in this together, and this is why things need to be built back. We all understand that. But the person at the state took a look at it, came back with the option that was presented to Rick and Amy on Friday. Obviously, they presented the option that would allow us to stay in the good standings in the National Flood Insurance and keep our rating, which is obviously the most important thing for the island as a whole. So it was still up to our staff. It was still up to Steve and the building department to take that option and decide if they wanted to allow that to be an option, because it does at the end of the day fall on the building code official or the building official to make that decision in the jurisdiction. On Friday, that decision was made. Kristen and myself sat down with Rick and Amy and their team, and Kristen made the I don't want to say offer, but made the pitch to them of this is what you could do to achieve your ultimate goal of keeping it. There were some compromises in there that they had to do, or they still have to do. They were on board with it. They understood it. Rick and Amy, he went on the roof, and it wasn't, and I don't want to speak for Rick, but it wasn't anything more than to just get an answer to, why not? Someone tell me why we can't do what we want to do. And I think we got to that resolution. They're having to give up a couple of things that they ultimately would have liked. And everybody, it's a compromise. And I think that's the whole moral of the story is we got to where we needed to go. Unfortunately, it took longer, and it took someone having to go on their roof, and it took things like that shouldn't have to happen. But I think situations like that lead to conversations with what we had all last week, and it gets to the resolution that works for everybody. And it's not going to be across the board. It's going to be a case by case issue. And as long as we get to somewhere and everybody's okay with being told no. And I think Amy and Rick would have been okay if the answer would have ultimately been, these are the three options that you were presented and you can choose one, but that's it. I think they would have been okay with it, but they just needed to know the answer as to why. And I think they got that answer, and now we're moving forward.
Okay, so there are going to be other situations, maybe not with a garage or something, where FEMA is like Big Brother looking over your shoulder because, that's what their goal. I mean, not their goal, but they're trying to make sure that this doesn't happen again. I guess that's what they're trying to make sure, and they're trying to.
Well, their ultimate goal is to make sure that things are built that saves people lives, right, and it doesn't cost taxpayers more money again and again and again, and that's ultimately. I mean, it's kind of dumbing it down quite a bit, but ultimately that is their goal. And the state's job and the state's role in this is to ensure that we're following the Florida Building Code and the statutes that were in place before the storm hit. So as long as we're doing those, we're fine. It's when you start changing things that maybe benefit people that you didn't have in place before, and it puts lives at stake, it puts tax dollars at stake. That's when you start getting FEMA and the state to say, wait a minute, you can't just allow things arbitrarily. You can, but these are the consequences if you do it. Right. And that's what we're trying to avoid.
So I guess what my question is, what do you say to residents, or can you tell residents who might come across a situation where it seems like the town and FEMA might not agree on something, but the resident thinks they're right about it? I mean, how do you get a faster resolution to that? Like you said, it took a long time for this to come to maybe as we were talking about over the weekend, maybe Rick and Amy are the pioneers on this, and the rest of the folks that have to deal with some kind of issue don't have to go through it. I mean, what should they do?
Well, with Rick and Amy's situation, obviously it's a unique situation. There was talk at the beginning about, and I was purposely trying to be very quiet in the public about it, because when you start putting opinions out in public, then people can grab onto it and they can start running with. So I wanted to make sure I understood everything that was going on before I said anything. And when you look into what they had, and you look at, there was talk about, was it lateral, was it not lateral? And I think the focus then became, I don't want to say an argument, but almost the issue became, was it attached or wasn't it attached?
Right,
and that shouldn't have been the issue. That shouldn't have been the main focus. There was no argument that it was an attached structure. How it was attached, everybody could argue that, or was it attached barely? Or, I mean, we can talk about that till we're blue in the face, but it shifted away from the focus of can this be an accessory structure? And that is the ultimate goal. And that's eventually what came out of this whole thing. So when you start saying things too soon and you start, just speculating without knowing what each side has to say, things can run rampant. And then all of a sudden you end up with people on the roof. And we certainly don't want that. It's not safe for him. It's not safe for us. We just want to get to the end of it. And I think that they did a very good job of bringing people in that are very knowledgeable, engineers, floodplain people, that they brought in the right team to look at it, to just say, here is our argument. Tell us why our argument is not right. And I think that's when it went back up and they looked at it again with fresh set of eyes and said, okay, we see your argument, but this still is in play and this still is in play. And that's how we got to where we were at.
And the fact of the matter is FEMA is never going to do things quickly. That's just not their MO. They're not going to, you can't call them up and ask them to come to your house and they'll be there the next day. It just doesn't work that way.
No, no, I mean it doesn't, but they certainly have people that are willing to take a look. If we have staff, if they have something that they're not quite sure on and they want to make sure that they're keeping us, their ultimate goal is to make sure we stay within the National Flood Insurance Program and protect the town.
Right.
So if they have a situation where they feel that they're potentially could make a decision, then they reach out, they go up the chain and say, this is what we're being proposed with, this is what we have, what do you think? And they'll take a look at it, and that's where we need to get the process better. That's where we need to work with the state and the FEMA and our building officials better to sit down in the room and get the decision so that we can get to it quicker. It's just it took a little longer than I would have liked, but as I said in the show a couple of weeks ago, it's nice that the light finally came out. People saw through everything that was being discussed and came to a resolution that works.
Gotcha. Okay, so Bayside Park, real quick. I know that's coming along nicely, and you guys decided that you were going to paint the poles, and you want to do a quick update on Bayside Park because 2 weeks.
Yeah, I drove by there today after the meeting just to kind of see where it was at. All the palm trees are in. They were still working on the electric. All the vegetation is put back in the front the way it was.
Yeah.
Staff worked on getting the seating, the bench area kind of covered. It's not exactly the same stuff that was on top before. It takes forever to get here, so it won't get here in time. But it's the same size. It's just not the same style, but it's the exact same size. Everything is the same there. I believe Wednesday or later this week that the turf should be going in, and then the pavers. So we should be ready by the 1st of September, by the deadline that we were trying to hit. There's a few things that we're working on after it's open to hopefully maybe spruce it up a little bit. We've had some people we've talked to in the town that are willing to help us out with a few things. So we won't be able to get that done in time, but once we know for sure that we're going to be able to do that, I think we'll be able to spruce it up even a little bit more. But the poles are going to be painted. I paid attention to the little poll you'd put out there about painting and not painting, and it started out a little 50.
I was surprised.
I was surprised that they wanted. I thought for sure that the majority of people would say leave it the way it is because it's not really horrible. I mean, but they don't want any memories. That group did not want any more memories.
And I think what's going to end up ultimately happening is they'll be painted back to the color that they were, and maybe there'll be a line that goes on one of the poles or maybe a couple of poles, and to show kind of just a reminder as to why that was why that line is there. But that I think that's great to have community involvement. And is it a good idea? Is it a bad idea? It doesn't, let's just see what people think. And everybody had very good reasons. It was nice to follow along and see their reason one way or another, why they liked it or they didn't like it. And it gives you kind of an insight into where people's mindset is. If so many people just want to move on and some people don't mind a little bit of a reminder, it was nice to see.
Yeah, and just so everybody knows, Dan did suggest that we put that out there, and the feedback was tremendous. I mean, it was massive about something like that. So it is nice to get that kind of feedback. One of the things that happened at the meeting today was Andy mentioned that him and Frankie drove around for 4 hours yesterday or over the weekend and kind of took a lay of the land, like who's taking care of their property, what needs to be followed up on. And so people are, just to get it out there, people are going to start to get letters if they're not cleaning up. So why don't you tell us about what's going on there?
Yeah, actually, when I was leaving to head over to Joe's yesterday, I happened to see those two turning down my street. And I had to do a double take and say, what are you guys doing here? And they said they were code enforcement today, and they were going around just like they said they were taking pictures of properties that haven't been touched, that probably need to come down. And so where to send the letters. They were trying to observe some of the things that we've been telling them about, that we've been hearing about. Pools that have been left untouched, pools that have been filled in, cars that are still sitting on the side of the road that haven't been touched. All the things that we talk about week after week. And it's nice that they actually took the time on a Sunday to go out and go around and take a look so they could get a better understanding of where we're at. They see houses that have been taken care of or well manicured, 10 months or 11 months after the storm. And then next door, it looks like it hasn't been touched since day one. So it's nice that they were able to get a perspective of where things are so that we can start sending the letter out. The letter was already taken care of by Becky. So now it's just a matter of sending them out. And it's essentially just saying, we understand, people are in different different. Some people are waiting for insurance. Some people are waiting for FEMA. Some people are waiting for. But let us know where you're at, or if you're not, we don't get any response, then we can start escalating it. But you have to go through that process. You can't just, foreclose on someone's property because they didn't mow their front yard.
Right. And it'll at least give you guys an idea of, okay, who's just ignoring it for no reason and who is in that, maybe it's insurance or whatever the process is that they haven't been able to do anything, just like town hall. You couldn't touch it for 10 and a half months and there was a good reason for it, but you'll be able to.
We've heard rumors of people saying, I've heard rumors of people saying, we're not going to touch it until the town starts fining us. Well,
yeah.
We're moving in that direction. So
yeah,
you can only wait so long. And I've said it all along. I didn't feel comfortable with really pushing on people until we could get our home taken care of, until we could get our town hall taken care of. And now that that's been done, now we need to start moving forward. Now we don't have, in my mind, I don't have any other reason, or we don't have any other reason to not make sure people start doing what they need to do to this stuff gets so thick and you never know what's growing in it. And, my wife hates snakes and, there's all these things, right. It becomes a life safety issue and we just can't have that.
Do you have any idea yet of did he give any indication in terms of numbers or anything like that at this
number
point?
Of properties?
Yeah.
I think that's what they were doing on Sunday. I don't want to speak for those two guys, but I think that's what they were doing, going around and really getting an idea of how many properties that we're going to have, sending it out. And, we're still trying to contact them through email, or just like we were talking about today with the beach renourishment and the beach berm. There's some people are just unresponsive.
Yeah. I got an email from somebody who said that the grass growing next door in our neighborhood somewhere at somebody's house that they were ignoring, it was so high they were giant lizards, and he was sending over pictures of these giant lizards. I'm like,
probably true,
man.
It is probably. I mean, I've seen reports of that on Sanibel, but yeah. I mean, I don't think I've seen one of those giant lizards. I saw a big lizard down there, bigger than I've ever seen before, but not the last giant one. So
was it when we were at Barbara Hill's house? She was showing us the backyard in her house, and she had one. It wasn't a pet or anything, and I think one of those giant green lizards back there by the canal in her backyard.
Well, we thought for sure we had some lizards out here in the backyard by the seawall, and we thought for sure, we'd let Holy Moly Foley out in the backyard, and he'd dart after him, and they'd just do like a Superman into the canal. And then the storm keys there's a mango tree right on the property line of our house and the neighbor's house, and somehow that survived, and they seem to love to live by those mango trees. So the other day we let him out in the morning, and we saw one of those lizards do another Superman into the canal. So they must be back.
Yeah. And by the way, just to, I just remembered it when you said the lizards. I don't know why, but the palm trees that were installed at Bayside Park are not coconut palms. They're sable palms. So there won't be any coming down at you when you're relaxing over there.
Lizards made you go to
I don't know. Falling lizards out of the tree made me think of coconuts.
If it gets cold enough, they will. Have you ever seen a falling lizard?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I was out kayaking and one fell into the water and then swam in front of the kayak, scared the living daylights out of me.
Right, Greg's right. They are iguanas, not lizards.
Sorry. Yeah.
So, last question about the cleanup. Are people getting fined for having dirty pools? Somebody came by our show Saturday and said he got a fine for a dirty pool. Is that something that you know about, or is that part of the list now?
I asked Frankie about that because Frankie's overseeing that now. So I asked Frankie about that today during the meeting, and he said his words were, "We're going to look at every code violation case by case going forward." So as of right now, there's going to be no violations, but again, it's a life safety thing. He was more concerned with people not having fencing around their pool.
Sure.
But they did see one pool that was filled in with dirt, or someone was filling it in with dirt. You obviously can't have that. So it'll be a case by case. They're going to look at every code, not just for that, but every code violation is going to have to go through Frankie before anything can happen, just to try to wrangle it in a little bit and try to use some common sense. So not saying that the guys aren't out there doing what they're supposed to do, but you have to kind of use your brain sometimes. But unfortunately, I shouldn't say unfortunate, but the guys that are employed to go out and do that, it's their job. They're not paid to decipher if it should be a violation or not. If it's a violation, it's a violation. And Frankie's gonna step in and start looking at some of those and try to work
Right.
through it with the residents as opposed to just writing tickets all the time.
Can you just elaborate on who Frankie is? Because somebody's asking. So
Yeah, so Frankie was brought on a few months back as his original title of what he was hired for. He's got a long history in government administration, and he was brought on to help get our contracts in order. Making sure that our procurement processes were done right, that we were doing everything we needed to do to make sure we get our FEMA reimbursement. And he quickly showed his colors in other areas. So he and Andy worked closely together to I believe his title is operations manager. So that's a pretty broad statement or pretty broad title. I'd be lying if I told you exactly what everything he does, but he's spearheading a lot of the stuff like Bayside Park, the parking stuff we talked about today, the code violations. He's overseeing a lot of that stuff now.
Yeah, his official title, because he gave us his card when Andy came on the show, was Operations and Compliance Director, but he kind of looks like the assistant town manager sitting there at those town council meetings now. I mean, Andy told us that he pretty much spotted him and said he needs to have more responsibility, and he surely seems like he is, which I think is good for the town. He seems like a very friendly person, and I know the town is trying to be kinder and gentler.
That and he's very much a go-getter. He's been around a long time. He worked at the county for a while. He's from. We always give him a hard time because he's from Wisconsin, or at least I should say, Andy gives him a hard time because he's from Wisconsin. And but he's a go-getter, and I'm always kind of a little reserved when I first meet people. And when I first met him, I was not quite sure if he's one of those guys who's just trying to tell you what you want to hear, or if he's actually a person that meets deadlines. And he's assured me that the deadlines he's put out, that's why I was very hesitant about saying Bayside Park's going to be done on this day, but he assured me that it's going to be done, and he seems to be doing everything that he says he would do. So I have a lot of respect for that.
All right, give us an update on how you're feeling about permitting.
Well, I don't.
It's the biggest question on the island. I mean,
it's been the biggest question for 11 months.
Yep.
We're speaking to Frankie and I and Andy, and I'm sure my fellow council members get the same emails, and they're probably having the same conversations with them that this is our number one priority. We need to get it under control. We need to figure out what the process is. We forget a lot of times that the people that are doing this work are trying to rebuild their houses. And I can only speak for myself, but I know sometimes I forget about that our staff members, not all of them, but some of them are going through the same rebuild process that we're going through. Yet they're still coming in every day, and they're still dealing with all the people yelling and some people giving them praise. And we just need to look at our processes right now. What I'm seeing the biggest issue is our process and how we're re-reviewing and going back out and get rejection letter after rejection letter. So how do we fix that? How do we fix it so that when a application comes in, it goes through the entire review process, you send out one rejection letter, give them a chance to fix it all, and then send it back. When you send it back to them with a rejection, then it gets fixed, and then it comes back in, and it goes to the bottom of the stack, and then it gets reviewed by the next part, and then it's just inefficient at best. It's a waste of our staff time. It's a waste of people trying to rebuild their houses. We're working on getting more people in. I know they're hiring people all the time. It's getting them trained up. So that part of it we're already addressing, but we need to take a look at this process. This process is broken. It's been broken for a while. We kind of were able to not see past it, but wasn't as noticeable for a couple months because we had a huge influx of state resources that were helping us at the early stages. And I think maybe that's why we were seeing some of the permitting complaints go down, because we had a large amount of staff. And then it's education. We have to keep pushing. It took a long time for us to get over the worksheets, the cost breakdown sheets. Now it seems like that's not as big a deal. People understand that that's a requirement, has to happen. So it's all process. It really is. It's all process. At the end of the day, we have to build in. What's that? Is
it getting better?
It's going to, because I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to stop beating people up until it does. It's just, it's our number one. It's our number one priority. You know, we can talk about big buildings, we can talk about, you know, future development, we can talk about all of this, but I'm a low hanging fruit person. We got to control what is that low hanging fruit. What is there that's going to get us people back in their houses the fastest? And if we can't fix that, everything else really does not matter. So I'm going to keep beating that drum. And I know my fellow council members are beating the same thing because they see the exact same emails that I see. And trust me, Andy and Frankie are hearing it every single day. And they're doing what they can do now to expedite this process to get it fixed.
I think that what I've heard from a couple of people is, I think what you were alluding to, where they put in their application, they get comments and it gets sent back. They fix that. And then when it goes back to be, you know, okay, everything's been done and fixed, all of a sudden they get sent back additional comments that weren't on the first go round. And it's like, yeah, just get it all in one fell swoop, and then they can fix everything so they can move forward on the second try rather than 4, 5, or 6.
Well, and that's just it. You know, I'm not sitting in that office every day, so I don't get to see, and not one person sees every single permit. So it's difficult for them to follow along. So that's why I really encourage people, if you're having issues, let me know what those are, because unless we know what they are, we can't address them, we can't fix them. And one of those things is what you just said. If you go in for, say, a flood review and it gets rejected and it gets sent back and you fix it and then you send it back, it may not be the same person that's reviewing it. And it may be someone that interprets it differently than the first person that reviewed it. So the frustration that you're seeing from builders now is, okay, we understand that this is the process. We get it. It's different than what we're used to, and we're willing to do the work. But you got to help us. You got to help us. When we send something in for review and you reject it and you send it back to us, we get it. We understand it. We'll fix it. We maybe missed something, or it wasn't something we knew we had to do now. We'll fix it. We'll send it forward. But once it gets sent forward, it's going to a different reviewer who may interpret something different. And now what you fixed before, now another reviewer is looking at it and going, well, I'm not really sure I like this part of it. And then they're rejecting it again.
Yeah.
And that just can't happen.
That can't happen.
And when you say, Dan, when you say reviewer, are you talking about the outsource company or your folks in the building?
It's the majority of it's outsourced stuff.
Yeah. I was going to say, there's really no way to, I mean, it would seem logical. I don't know if it's possible to, that a homeowner works with the same person all the time, you know, but it's totally impossible if you're outsourcing it. And I know you're looking at changing or making that better for sure.
Yeah. I mean, if we can bring that stuff in-house, or at least closer to in-house, as I said before, I've seen some of the email responses from the company that's doing the reviewing for us on the other coast. I don't know if I was accidentally copied on stuff or blind copied on purpose. I'm not sure, but I did start to see a couple email chains that were going back and forth between some people that we are paying very good money to do the reviews from the other coast to our constituents. And to say I was less than pleased would be an understatement. And I did reply to them and say, this is not how we talk to people. And then, all of a sudden people realize, oh, I didn't know that this was being seen by everybody. So you have to do things professionally. And again, if no is the answer, that's fine, but just be polite about it. You don't have to be a jerk when you reply to people.
So you mentioned a few minutes ago about, permitting being the biggest thing, not so much big developments, but now we're going to ask about developments, big or small. What is your opinion on the Myers side?
Oh boy, hold on.
He needs to take a drink before that one.
Is that a bad question?
Okay, go ahead. What was your question?
Okay, you just didn't hear it.
No, I didn't. I'm sorry.
Are you lying?
He purposely didn't hear it.
Now I know why he was like, "Here, you ask this."
Oh,
big jerk. Anyways, so what are your thoughts? What are your opinions on the Myers side? What Myers side has put forth?
Well, my conversations with them when I first saw that is I said, of all the ones that I've seen, this one is architecturally the most pleasing. There was some issue with parking. It didn't appear that there was going to be enough parking, and there was some discussion about maybe renting from the town in Bay Oaks area. It's still, on the surface, I think architecturally it looks the best. The numbers, I don't know what the numbers are off the top of my head, and I'm sure they're going to be trying to ask for more density. I don't know what the setbacks are. We didn't get to any of that, but I was very complimentary of the architecture itself. I think, the step back things, the I don't want to say Key Westy vibe, but kind of like the Key Westy vibe, not just a big square stucco box. It'll be nice to see what the numbers are on it.
So there were 14 cottagey style units over there. If 41 boutique style hotel units come before you, are you okay going from 14 to 41?
That's a big jump. It's a big jump. Honestly, I don't. Off the top of my head, if I'm being honest, no, I'm
okay,
not.
All right, that's fair.
But again, I don't know. Is 41 going to be their final number? Is 28 going to be their final? This is just speculation. It's just a feeling out. It's just a what do you think? So I try to give people positives if they show something to me, but I also try to give them some of the things that I'm concerned with, like the parking and the density and things like that we have to be concerned with because these are the rules that we have to follow. In this case, they just gotten a CPD. What's going to happen with that? Is that going to get thrown out and they're going to do another one? There's going to be an amendment to that. I mean, there's so many unanswered questions to what was approved already versus and what wasn't completed, what they're going to want now. But again, I think the architectural, the aesthetics of it, I was pleased with the way it looked.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea? I mean, I know we've talked to some people who've tried to get this number, but do you have any idea the number of hotel rooms that were on the beach before Ian?
The exact number? No,
Well, I'll even take like an estimate.
I guess the reason we're asking that, Dan.
Well, let me answer.
Well, we're trying to figure out, like, okay, so you have basically the Pink Shell, the Lighthouse, and Diamond Head right now. We don't really know what else is coming back, but now you got Moss Marina, and you got the Pink Shells trying to do something big down there, and you got the Myra side and the Neptune all in kind of like one area that really
you don't know what London Bay is going to do.
Congestion in that one spot. I mean, if they all get approved, how does the town deal with the infrastructure of all that?
Well, I've been saying that all along. It was one of the things that it's not discussed. It's the things that people can't see that we really should be discussing. I've said this analogy a few times. The tube is only so big that comes onto the island, right? And you can only fit so much through that tube. And that's something we have to be cognizant. Besides parking, it's something that we have to be very cognizant of. And so far, there's been no discussions on how do we address that? How do we make this work so that if these developments are approved, or if some of them are approved, that we have the infrastructure to be able to handle it. And until we have those conversations, we can dream for the sky, but you have to have you have to have a bigger tube.
Yeah, I don't know how many times I've said that since you first said that the other day. Now, pre-Ian, the tube was big enough. I mean, to use that analogy, were there
tube wasn't?
No,
it was strange.
Told us
It was
that you
strange
can't
for
deal with
sure.
the traffic, but
I think it was about maxed.
Yeah,
for water, sewer, that kind of infrastructure. Okay.
Well, you think of just water pressure. I mean, we get our water from Lee County. It's not something that we produce here on the island. So, if you start building all these big developments, what is the answer for water pressure? Is the person on the fourth floor going to get the same water pressure on the first floor? I mean, I know that's my minutia type of thing we're talking about, but those are things that have to be considered. Not to mention that, we could talk till traffic till we're blue in the face, but you have to look at internet. You have to look at, how fast, a question that was brought up to me the other day is how high, and it's a very good question. I never really thought about it. How high does a ladder truck go? How high can a ladder truck reach? So if you've got a fire in a building, how high can our first responders reach you? I don't know that answer yet, but that's something to think about. Do we have the capability, if there's a 7 or 8 or 10 story building, to be able to boom up high enough to get those people out? I don't know that. So those are things that
some of those condo buildings are pretty big.
Plus Diamond Head.
Well, I don't know that there's a ladder truck that big, but I'm not a fireman. I can't really answer that.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely going to all be interesting. For sure.
You didn't get a chance. So do you know do you have an estimate of how many hotel rooms?
I don't know the exact amount of rooms. I know that during some of the Moss Marine proposal, they were talking about 6,000 rooms were lost after Ian. So it would, if those numbers are correct, it would have to be more than that.
Well, is he talking about all Lee County or just Fort Myers Beach?
I think he was talking about just on Fort Myers Beach is my understanding, but
Wow.
I don't know. That's something we'd have to probably check with the chamber. I'm guessing Jackie
Yeah.
could probably get that information for us. But you know, you gotta. It's not just those. To me, I don't look at it as just those resorts and just those potential more rooms. You look at some of the people that had Airbnbs, for instance, that maybe had a 1-bedroom Airbnb or a 2-bedroom Airbnb. That house was completely destroyed. They're more than likely going to build back what they can build back by right, which could be a 3 or 4-bedroom unit. So now you're adding more bathrooms, more bedrooms, more capacity just in the Airbnbs, not counting the hotel rooms alone. And they're allowed to do that by right. So I think it's important that you keep that in the back of your mind too. The little cute cottage that you saw on Airbnb that had, 800 square feet, 2 bedrooms and 1 bath is now going to be 25 or 3,000 square feet with 4 bedrooms and 3 baths. So
Yeah.
you're going to be increasing the amount of people that are going to come in just that one property alone. So you take a look at that across the entire island, and then you start adding all the hotel rooms, and
Yeah.
it gets to be quite a bit. So it's something. It's not just as simple as a yes or no with one property. It's something I think that we have to be very cognizant of the entire picture.
I think you guys just today approved a 2-story cottage that used to be a 1-story cottage. I don't think it's a rental. It's bigger than it was.
Well, but look at that in general. So the story behind that, and I think we tried to cover it, was earlier on. I think it was the beginning of the year. We tried to put something in place for those cottage lots that before Ian had no way to be able to rebuild what they had by right, build back what they had. So we gave them that avenue to build back. I think this one today was 632 square feet or 600 and some square feet. That's a hotel room.
Yeah,
So they could build that back, but we made sure we kept the process in place that if they wanted to go an extra story or go a little bit higher, that they had to come through the variance process just like they did today. And it's a case by case. Sometimes it may get approved, sometimes it may not. But at the end of the day, they were talking, I think 12 or not even 1,300 square feet. It's the average style.
Sure.
Our house is 1,190 square feet, so it's not huge, but it's just going to be a little bit taller.
Right. So the town hall discussion came up today, and it's going to be in our newsletter tomorrow about moving over to Bay Oaks. But can you give us an update, if there is any, on like the future building? Like, do you know where the money is coming from? You're going to get money from FEMA for that, or are you going to build in that one big building in Bay Oaks? Where does that whole discussion? Because when Frankie said today, or Andy said today, 3 to 4 years in the trailers at Bay Oaks, I was like, wow, that sounds like a long time.
Well, it's possible. We have a permit ready building that we were going to use for Bay Oaks. So the discussion started, well, how could we possibly make that? How can we shorten that 3-year time frame or 4-year time frame to get a new town hall if we use that existing building? So then there was talk about, well, what if we put 2 stories on top of that building that's already there? Can we save money for one? Can we create a public space that is one-stop shop for everybody? Can we shorten the time that it's going to take to get people back into a building to be able to do their job? All those things were kind of considered. So that's kind of the plan. You said you're going to cover it tomorrow, but that's kind of the plan. And how does it save money? So I think what you're going to see and what the discussion will come out that we'll have is, does it make sense to put Town Hall and Bay Oaks? And what we're looking at doing is not just building that building the way it was. There's people that we're working with to try to give us ideas or designs, and that'll come forward for everybody to have their comments on, and we'll make the selection of a firm to design it. But do we want to have that all in one area? Do we want to have Bay Oaks? But the plan is to incorporate what was going to be phase 2, if you will, where the gymnasium was going to be attached to it. So that would be able to be attached at the same time. Then it frees up the old building that we could use for public works. We can now have a place to store all of the very expensive equipment that our taxpayers pay for, the trucks, the gators, all the stuff that sits outside right now and just gets beaten by the sun and the elements. It provides that, all while saving money, not necessarily just to the town taxpayers, but the state, because the state is helping us out as well. So we're trying to look at it holistically of what's the best path forward. Is it that? Is it building on our current town hall site? Is it building on the fire district site if we switch that? So all those options are out there and all of them are being discussed. We're just trying to figure out the most efficient, cost-effective way to get back up and running for everybody.
Gotcha. So, well, also you brought it up today. The administrative fee for the tickets. I don't have any problem with the $77 ticket if you go over. I mean, it could never be $35. That didn't make any sense because you could just park there all day and pay the ticket and not move your car. But 77 gives you some incentive to move your car or fill a meter or something. But the people that were fighting the ticket get slammed with a $175 administrative fee, which it's almost a deterrent to fight your ticket.
Well, hearing that, it's a reason to show up if you want to fight your ticket. I mean, to not just show up and then you get nailed with that $175 fee. Sounds like we're going to have this discussion during the budget hearings again about the fees. I know we had an initial talk about it, but we didn't necessarily look at the administrative fee. But I think that's when we have to take a look at that. It seems a little excessive to me. To charge that for a $77 ticket, especially if you only paid $5 and you planned on staying for an hour and you were 20 minutes over or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And now a $5 mistake is going to cost you 200 and whatever, 50 some dollars. So it's something we'll take a look at.
Yeah, I think if you go and fight the ticket and you lose, you pay the ticket. I mean, the magistrate decides.
I think every time you go to court, though, you
know,
pay court
there are
fees
administrative
to
costs on anyone that's ever paid a parking ticket or tried to park the ticket or a speeding ticket. They always get you with some sort of administrative cost because the magistrate costs so much, the town staff to show up. I mean, all that stuff costs money, and what
they are salaried. They are salaried employees that get paid by the budget. It's like a shipping and handling fee. It's bull.
If you win, you don't pay that fee.
Well, yeah, if you win, you don't pay anything. But even if you go and lose, you have to pay it. So if you don't show up, if you go and lose, you have to pay it. It's like, well, it's not a fair fight. If I go and lose, I'm paying $225. Just pay the 77 and not fight it. That's my point.
But if you know you're right and you have your documentation, then
I thought the guy that parked to unload his stuff at Bella Mozzarella had a pretty good case, but the magistrate was having none of it. And so, but that's, a different story. So at least you're looking at it, right? You think it's too excessive.
Well, I mean, I need to understand why it's $175. I don't.
True.
I mean, if they can make a good case as to why it's $175, that the majority of the council can agree that then it'll stay there. If not, then it'll get changed. But I don't understand why it's $175, and I'm sure that'll be explained to us amongst other fees that we're probably going to come across in the next month or so as to we maybe want to change one way or another.
One of the things that I was confused by today at the town council meeting,
just one
thing, was that the town attorney, who I love, by the way, she's awesome. She said that the foreclosure lawsuit with Prasad was dismissed. I totally missed that somewhere along the line. I know you guys are trying to foreclose on like 5 properties because
I don't think she said the foreclosure was dismissed. I think what she said was Terry's lawsuit against the town was dismissed. That's what she wasn't referring to the foreclosure. It was Terry's.
Glad you clarified that.
Yeah, that was my understanding.
At least to you.
Yeah, well, I didn't come across that way to me. That's why I wrote it down. It was like, well, as far as I remember, the town is trying to foreclose on 5 properties that they've had liens on that aren't paying their fines, and that was one of them.
Yeah, no, I don't think it had anything to do with that part of it. I think it was was Terry's lawsuit against the town was dropped. Where we're at with that, as we talked about in the meeting, is we had a shade meeting. We offered a settlement agreement to Terry and his lawyers. They did not agree with our proposal during the shade meeting, and we came to an impasse. So that just basically meant that we're going to move on, and we're going to move on. And over this weekend, I think it was Terry or his lawyers, I can't remember who it was, sent us all an email with a counter offer, if you will, that was sent to us via email. So that's what I think Becky was talking about today, is we need to have a meeting to discuss that, because it's all been done through the public now. Can't have a shade meeting. So we'll bring it back in one of the next two council meetings, and we'll discuss it and give direction to the attorney and, where we want to proceed. Do we want to accept it? Do we want to counter? Do we want to start the foreclosure? What do we want to do? So I think that's what'll come up in the next meeting or two.
Right. And I mean, unfortunately, that adds to the dilemma of Times Square. You got this going on, and you got the business owners that are trying to sell their property, and the town's trying to tear up Times Square now to get the clock electricity and, the future work for whatever it's going to be. And nobody knows what it's going to be. I mean,
Yeah, I was hoping after our last offer that it would be accepted, because I felt that it was a very, very good offer. However, they did not, and so we're at where we're at. They've now sent us a counter offer, and we'll discuss it and see where it goes. But
gotcha.
That's as best I can give you right now.
Okay. Before we get to
Is that a dumb question?
no, I think that Dan might have even brought that up one time before with the new developments about impact fees to try and help with the infrastructure.
Yeah.
That's something that's been.
Can you guys impose impact fees on new developments to help offset infrastructure?
I believe impact fees are already set. That's a good
The
question.
county?
I know the county sets. Yeah, I don't have a dinger. That's a good question. That's one I've been meaning to ask to get 100% clarification on that, and how the impact fees actually work. If it comes through the county, if it can come through the county, and I see Studio ADs on here. Maybe he can opine. He would probably know better than I would off the top of my head. But that's something I can get the answer on for you.
Yeah, Albert probably does know. So before
But I know
we
impact
get,
fees are pretty high. They're usually pretty high on bigger developments.
Oh, yeah. So before we get to the final question, did I miss any updates that you wanted to share?
There is one that I just, in case nobody has seen it, that there's going to be, let me pull it up here. A business impacted by Hurricane Ian. I don't know if you saw that bulletin go out by Jenny. The gathering place is Thursday, August 24th from 3 to 7 at 2304 Periwinkle Way in Sanibel. And then there's also another one at Lakes Regional Library on Tuesday, August 29th from 2 to 5. That's 15290 Bass Road. It's essentially going to be SBA. They'll be there for disaster recovery funding, access to capital, procurement opportunities, financial literacy, economic prospects in the region, government contracting, and community economic empowerment. So anyone that has questions or looking for SBA help, that might be something that's very good to attend. And then I think everybody's already aware of the Little League baseball field, the 28th, that'll be reopening. So we're looking forward to that. And then obviously Bayside Park will be around the 1st. So we're the nice thing is you're finally starting to see, 10, 11 months of hard work start to kind of come to fruition. I know it's probably taken a little longer. It feels like it's taken a little longer than it should, but it's a long process sometimes to get these things started. But it's nice that we're finally starting to see some physical things coming out of the ground that are being rebuilt, and hopefully it provides some hope and that things are going in the right direction, and just be patient, and you'll start to continue to see things sprouting out of the ground and coming back to whatever the new normal will be.
And our show next Monday will be at the ball field because it's the same night as the celebration. And when Andy was giving me the tour of the Bay Oaks and sharing a vision of what it'd like to be, we were talking about the importance of youth athletics on a community. Nothing gets people together more than seeing the kids out there, whether it's flag football or baseball or football, regular football. To have them out there playing baseball again would be great. And to see that field the way it is now, and to think it's going to be ready soon, is really incredible. It's going to be an incredible transformation from what it was when it was a debris field to what it's going to be in a week.
Yeah, we've been really fortunate with the donations we got from Scott's and Major League Baseball and 7-Eleven and ICS that have come out and prepared the ground for us. And our staff will be out helping roll out all the turf and get it ready. It's just a community project, and it's bringing everybody together, and it ties into that community. You've heard me say it several times. This island is like it's a stool. It's a 3-legged stool. You have to have the community. You You have to have businesses and you have to have residents and tourists, right? And if you lose one of those, that stool, it crumbles and it falls over. So having a ball field, having the school, having the gym getting opened back up, all that stuff is part of the community, and it's what we need. You can't let it go too far one way or the other, or it's just not going to succeed. It's just not what Fort Myers Beach was built on. It's not what Fort Myers Beach is going to be. It has to be a good balance between all three of those things in order for it to work.
Yeah, and it would be cool. I don't know if it's possible, but to see one of those, fast time lapse transformations of that field from what it is now into that green grass that the kids are going to be playing out on. That'd be cool to see how fast.
Yeah, I'm hoping somebody took some video of it. That would be really cool to see if someone did that time lapse, because I always like seeing those when it starts, and you really get to see how much work actually goes into it with the heavy equipment moving and all the stuff that's out there and the surveying, and it's pretty impressive.
So I think it was 2 weeks ago. Yeah, 2 weeks ago when we did the show at Diamond Head, I asked you a question if you were going to run again next year, and you were kind of wishy-washy on it. So I wanted to see if maybe you wanted to clarify your answer to that question.
Yeah, Megan and I have obviously talked a lot about it, and when we were traveling this last couple of weeks, we talked a lot about it. We had a lot of time, a lot of windshield time, so we talked about, where we're at, and our recovery is like everyone else. We're starting from zero again and rebuilding our lives, and how much time or how much energy do we have to be invested in this, and we both came to the same conclusion that I absolutely feel like I should run again, because we have a lot of unfinished business, and I'd really hate myself if I didn't stay involved, at this level to I've made some great connections over the last 11 months in Tallahassee, in DC. I think it's important to keep that continuity of brain power, if you will, together to try to keep striving in the right direction and getting us back. So yeah, I absolutely will be running again.
All right. Very nice. So we got our first commitment to the town council for next year. So, all right, Dan. Well, that's a perfect way to end the show. It's a pleasure to have you on. And listen, we really appreciate you coming on every Monday. We know you don't have to do this. You could do it on your own, or you could do it somewhere else. But we appreciate the fact that you come on our show every Monday and do it. And it means a lot.
I appreciate it, guys. Thanks. Keep up the good work, and we'll see you soon.
Are you seeing all the comments?
I'm not. I'm on a private. I don't see any middle finger. I haven't seen a middle
No,
finger
they're all positive. They're all positive, and there's a lot of them. So,
all right, Dan, thanks a lot, man. Have a good night.
You guys as well. Thanks.
All right, Dan Allers, everybody. We appreciate him coming on 32 times so far. Before we wrap things up, if you get a public adjuster, dear, and the public adjuster can't get you money, it's time to get an attorney, because your insurance company is not operating in good faith. And we have the insurance company for you. We don't have the insurance company for you. We have the law firm for you. It's called the Landau Law Group. And you can reach them at 866-703-4878. That's 866-703-4878, because Matt, Eric, and Paul at the Landau Law Group have been helping folks with hurricane claims in the community and communities throughout Florida for 30 years. Call them. Please get your money. You deserve your money.
When you started the show by talking about Dorston Claims, that when the guy, is it Dean that was on? Or I don't want to mispronounce his name.
I don't know.
We gave the money to.
Yeah.
And he said that he just recently got an adjuster and he got a ton more money.
Nice.
So
there's no downside to it, because you only pay on top of what they get you, on top of what they get you.
I guess eventually there's a time limit on it, but I was surprised.
Nice.
Yeah.
And finally, Jorge Barrera, folks, if you're looking at buying or selling your home, we want you to call Jorge Barrera, or if you're interested in what he donates to the community, you can call him and ask him, because he donates a lot. 239-791-9893. Give him a call. He works for Premier Plus Realty. Everybody knows Jorge. You see him at Buttonwood. You see him at our show on Saturdays when he comes to Wahoo Willie's. And he's so nice to see his mom.
It was so nice to meet his mom last week. She was just adorable.
Did you speak
Georgia.
Spanish to her? Because she didn't speak
Yes.
English.
Used the Google Translate to send a little message, and I think it brought a little tear to her eye.
Oh, that's nice. And lastly, folks, we have just secured another interview with Ben Freeland for an update on the Moss Marina project. That's a week from Friday at 5 o'clock. It'll be our 5 o'clock happy hour show. That'll be a busy weekend because on Sunday, it's the race, the day before Labor Day race, or just about 150 runners. And come on, Rhonda. We just stopped talking about Wisconsin. Please go on our website and register. You can run, you can walk the mile, you can do it virtually from wherever you are. We'll be sending out shirts this week. And we will be doing the award ceremony inside Diamond Head, where it's nice and cool, so you won't have to sit out in the sun on the day before Labor Day. So that's all coming up that weekend. And we will see you again Saturday live from Wahoo Willie's. Thank you for tuning in. You're not going to say anything? Bye-bye.